Thank you for being here. Again, House Minority Leader Lisa Demuth, and as you saw, there was a absolute chaotic end to the session here in the Minnesota House of Representatives, and I know we'll hear from Senator Johnson too. The Democrat majority absolutely rammed through the last of their partisan priorities. I mistakenly told you it was 1,430 pages of a bill that was not available online, and it was not available in the chamber. Let me correct that. I just became aware that it is 2,860 pages because they're front and back. 2,860 pages that were not available to any member in the chamber, anyone in watching or wanting to go online to see what was in there. There were conference committee reports that were combined into this one extortion bill. I don't know what we're going to call it yet, but a bill that was not presented in that way. There were a number of provisions that we know possibly could have been airdropped in, and we don't know what those were. The voice of the minority was completely shut out during the end process. We were asking to be recognized. We were asking for the bill. We were asking points of parliamentary inquiry, and the speaker chose to completely ignore what was going on. Republicans in the Minnesota House have been debating the bills that have come before us thoroughly. A number of those provisions, as they made it through the committee process, it was not transparent. As we had people in the committees, they tried to ask questions and get correct information, but when it came to testifiers and people that wanted to provide either opposing or agreeing views on it, they were limited in time. Democrats in the Minnesota House chose to have these final provisions debated on the House floor. And we were not in any way delaying that, but we were having full and thorough debates that need to happen when you're going to pass legislation in the state of Minnesota. That is the work that House Republicans were doing. And so if you hear differently, that is incorrect information. The full Democrat majority in the state of Minnesota has had 2 full years to get their work done. So we are not taking that as the responsibility or the delay by Republicans. If these were priorities to them, they would have had their work done already, and that was not the case. It has been a very, very frustrating process, again, and I just want to quote something before I was in the legislature. When the House Republicans were in charge, there was a large bill toward the end of session that was frustrating for the process, specifically for the minority, but that bill was provided, full debate went on, they were able to caucus it, and then the vote was taken on that. And I want to quote from Melissa Hortman from 2018, serving in the minority, her quote, "Nobody looking at this legislative session, Democrat or Republican, should ever do anything like that again. We certainly would not." Well, here we are, 2024, just 6 years later, and that was just done to the minority in the House of Representatives. We were completely steamrolled by the Democrat majority. Our voices were not heard, shutting out the voices of Minnesota. Like I told a couple of colleagues, as most of you know, I have been a minority my entire life, and I have never been treated this poorly as what we saw happen in the House of Representatives. We are looking forward to changing that. Minnesotans have to have their voices heard. They have to be able to know what is going forward and wise decisions being made as bills are being voted on. And with that, I will turn it over to Senator Johnson.
Thank you, Leader Demuth. Mark Johnson, Senate Republican leader. This has been quite the day. It's actually been quite the session. The last 15 minutes of session, we passed 2,800 pages worth of legislation that we have no idea what's in that bill right now. And it went through. They also brought up another bill to go through as well. Look, we have a Democrat trifecta, and they have abused not only us in the Senate and also in the House, but Minnesotans. This whole process has been baked from the very beginning, and now we've got product that we have no idea what's in it. This extreme agenda continues every single day we are out there. Look, folks, this is the biggest disappointment. I just feel gross coming off that Senate floor today. The abuse of the rules, the unconstitutional bills that are coming off of there, and by the way, they used an alleged felon to pass these bills. the number 34 vote in a number of the controversial bills that came through this year, all to protect an agenda. When the agenda becomes more important than people, this is what happens. They abuse the process, they abuse the system to get their agenda through. And we saw that over and over again over the last 2 years. A waste of $18 billion worth of taxpayer funding. Go and talk to your schools. Ask them if they feel like they're in a stronger financial position as they're laying off teachers right now. Talk to your businesses as they are wrestling with mandates that they cannot figure out how they are going to make their business work. Talk to Minnesotans across the state who are paying more every single day for their groceries, for their gas, for taxes, for tab fees. This trifecta has been a disaster, not just for the legislative process, but for Minnesotans. Remember that this November, when you go to the polls and you are voting, this is what happens when you have single-party control that wants to take this agenda and ram it through the legislative process and in Minnesota, despite the effects on Minnesotans. Folks, this has been a very sad day, a climactic end to a sad 2 years, and we're looking forward to changing that this fall.
Paul Torkelson, Deputy Leader of the Republican Caucus. Just never seen anything like this in my 16 years here in the Minnesota House of Representatives. You're going to hear the Democrats come in here and try to blame us for the way this session ended. They're going to say, oh, they filibustered. Well, the truth is we didn't filibuster. We discussed bills that came before the House on the House floor. There were long discussions, but they were controversial bills. They brought bills to the House floor during these last few days that they knew weren't going to pass, that were controversial bills that naturally brought up a lot of discussion. They control which bills come to the House floor and when. They control the calendar. They could have done this work in a much more timely fashion, gotten those bills, if they wanted to hear those bills on the House floor, they could have brought them much sooner and had the proper debate, but instead, they decided to jam all of this controversial stuff into the end of session and then blame us because we wanted to discuss the bills. And by the way, they didn't allow us to serve on most of their conference committees either. So much of this information that was stuck in conference had never been heard. The only chance we had to debate it was on the House floor. It's just not the way things are supposed to be done. The voice of the minority is important. The other thing that happens around here, I think we all know, is a lot of negotiations go on behind the scene, right? When things are getting tough, the leaders get off to the side behind the door and they figure out, well, what can we give? What can we take? How can we make this work? They refused to do that. They set up appointments and didn't show up or postponed them. They didn't give us a chance to really think about and discuss how we could end this session, how we could land the plane smoothly. That's not the way we do it. There's always conflict between the caucuses, but discussion behind the scenes can grease the skids and we can reach agreements on how to land without all this controversy. It's a crying shame that they would act this way, and I hope Minnesota voters remember.
Questions?
Mr. Leader Johnson, do you condone what some of your members did on the Senate floor after this, the yelling and screaming for an extended period of time, which I think is certainly unprecedented in modern times in the Minnesota Senate?
So I condone my members for trying to stick up for our position after the Senate president railroaded through the rules, clearly completely disregarded us. He wouldn't call on us, wouldn't give us any opportunity to make our points of order, which clearly within the rules, he should have been calling on us. Senator Howe was up there. He retained the floor, and yet they ignored him. This has made a mockery of our system here. And quite frankly, it's just, I cannot believe what the Democrats did to the minority in here. Even former Senate Minority Leader Melissa Lopez Franzen put up a tweet defending the actions of the minority today as well. And so, this whole process, what you see happen tonight was a result of what the Democrats had done to the minority. on that. The other thing I would like to note too is this morning I was brought into a meeting with Leader Demuth as well on the pretense of trying to work out something on a bonding bill or some of the negotiations there as well. And while they had us down in there, Leader Murphy ran upstairs on a phone call and went and organized the call that they called the previous question, which hasn't been done in 15, 16 years in the Minnesota Senate. And so it was another trick to trap us away from the floor to do this. I mean, everything that happened today really was just a setup for what happened later today, getting this 2,800-page bill.
Were there any other meetings after that between the leaders, or?
Look, there was, actually on our side, we were trying to exchange offers. Again, we wanted to do this in good faith, even though in the morning we had gotten to that trap with the governor and with Demuth, or with Hortman and Murphy. We still wanted to get something to land this plane smoothly. We gave them good faith offers. We negotiated through the afternoon. Come to realize, again, that was, it's like Lucy trying to pull the football away. We went for it, tried to do something in good faith, and then they go ahead and do this.
What was your final offer?
Our final offer, we were trying to work on language. We had a number of different bills going back and forth, so there was a lot of dynamics there. It was very fluid.
Sports betting is not in this bill. Do you know?
Well, why don't you start going through it and seeing, because I'm not sure.
The Democratic members, you know, they basically said that you are all, despite the fact you didn't read this bill in this form, you're all basically familiar with everything because you've seen a lot of these bills earlier in the session, and this is just a bill that kind of lumps them together.
So we have to trust them now, at this point, after what they've done to us for the last 2 years. I don't trust them. I don't know what's in this bill, and quite frankly, I don't know if anybody does.
I'll add one thing. There was a cash bill that, I don't know how many pages, but it was passed off the House floor. We don't know the content of that either, but that was at least provided, some copies on the House floor after we recessed for a little bit. That did pass off the House floor. Apparently, it was too late for a vote in the Senate is what we're hearing, so it died. I don't know the size of it, I don't know the content, but apparently whether that was by design or just by time management error, that cash bill is no longer, it was not able to be signed in time before midnight in the Senate from our understanding. I'm sure you'll get some clarification from the majority.
Mr. Leader, is it your understanding, did Senate President Champion say that the bill did not pass? I'm talking about the cash bonding.
The cash bill, yes. We made, we pointed out that it was past midnight, and so he said it did not pass.
How much of what happened tonight on the House and Senate floors is the result of 2 years of pent-up frustration being in the trifecta minority? Is it just you at the end of your rope?
Tom, that's a good question. I mean, we continue to be in good faith on the negotiation throughout the year. Despite what had happened last year, we continue to try to work with them in a very bipartisan manner, right up until this bill dropped. And so there's some pent-up frustration there as well, but it really took us by surprise when we were doing all our good faith efforts with the majority to do that.
Mr. Leader, are we looking at legal action over the single subject clause in the state constitution? Is this actionable?
This is still hot off the press. I have no idea what's in there. I assume there'll be a violation of single subject rules in there, but we'll have to take some time to go through that.
Should there be a special session for a bonding bill or anything else that didn't get done today?
I have no, you want to answer? Go for it.
You know, the idea of a special session for something that full trifecta, full Democrat majority, just because they didn't get their work done with 2 full years, I would not be in favor of a special session. I don't know what they would possibly want to bring up. The state is looking at a looming deficit after having a record surplus, and so if it would be more spending, that doesn't exist. Again, the governor is the only person that can call that special session. It would be up to him. My hope is that he would not pass this because of process, and if that's the conversation he wants to have and wants to have transparent governance in the state of Minnesota, we would possibly consider that. but I don't know how to answer that any other way than they had plenty of time to get their work done and chose not to.
Do you want to comment on the ethics complaints that you filed against the
I'm sorry?
speaker? Do you want to comment on the ethics
Yes, I
complaint
would
against the
love to
speaker?
comment on, I thought I brought it with, but it was a little bit of a whirlwind. I did file an ethics complaint against Speaker Hortman, and I have it right here. Thank you very much. Staff is amazing. It just references that on the night of Sunday, May 19th, Speaker Melissa Hortman violated House rules on decorum and Masons, Section 578, by limiting and closing debate outside of the rules and preventing the making of legitimate motions. Several members, and specifically House Minority Leader Lisa Demuth, requested divisions, roll calls, and other motions. More importantly, Leader Demuth requested to adjourn sine die. These are legitimate motions, and they were ignored repeatedly. There's 2 more paragraphs. We did go ahead and file that. We also filed a protest and dissent.
Most of us are familiar with the Senate ethics process after this year. What does the House process look like?
The House process is very similar. It is an equal split as far as Democrats and Republicans. I don't expect that would be brought up. Again, the majority is still in control. We are adjourning sine die tomorrow, and I don't know if anything would happen, but at least it puts it on record of what happened and how the voice of the minority was disrespected and pushed out of the process.
Do you have any pressure that you can bring to bear, given that it is the interim, on the majority to actually hold a hearing on this?
There's very limited. If there would be a special session, I don't know what we would have. I don't think there's a lot that we could do. We will be constantly reminding the voters of Minnesota that there's 169 days to the next election, and we need to bring back balanced government into the state of Minnesota, so all voices are heard and all votes on committees and on bills are actually needed.
What does tomorrow, or I guess later today, look like when you guys return?
At the House of Representatives, we go back at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning, and there will be retirement speeches. And out of respect for the members that are retiring, I will be there. I don't know what the other members are choosing to do. I will be there strictly out of respect for retiring members. If it was not for that, I would not be there tomorrow. This has been an absolute sham.
There are some people who are onlookers, some people who served in the legislature, who say that the institution of the legislature cannot come back from this. What do you say?
I would say that I've received texts from former speakers and former people that have served in the House of Representatives, and it is very concerning what was done. We talked about custom and usage and how things are handled within a body, and this has completely changed that dynamic. What we are looking is when we return in January of '25, I am looking to restore the institution of the legislature and the work being done to serve the people of Minnesota in a respectful way, completely opposite of how it was disrespected. That is what Minnesotans are choosing. They are choosing leaders that can actually lead and govern appropriately, and that's what we are looking forward to.
Madam Leader and Mr. Leader, as long as you mentioned 2025 and the election, which is in between then and now, you got your way on the ERA. I assume that can't really be in there, right? Because it's a constitutional amendment, correct?
That would be my expectation.
Yeah. So, given that, what is the perspectives in terms of how does that play out in the next election? Because you've got to take control, otherwise they can try it again.
I would say that what we are looking at is we are bringing balance back into the state legislature. Again, with a $72 billion budget, all of the broken promises by a full Democrat trifecta. We are looking to change that. We know that we need to get rid of waste, fraud, and abuse within agencies. We need to stop growing government. We need to stop putting mandates that are unfunded and unreasonable on our schools and on our businesses. Minnesotans deserve to be able to afford their lives. Minnesota is a great state, and we want people to choose to be here. We need to look at permitting reform. There are a number of things that actually need to be done that would help the state of Minnesota. That's what we're looking forward to after the election.
I'm sorry, are you happy that the ERA is at least stopped at this point?
The language that was on the ERA was not transparent for voters, and I am very happy that didn't go through.
And we didn't have an opportunity to look at that in the Senate. It didn't come up with the House language over there, so I wasn't aware of exactly what was in that bill. So they never had it up for a vote.
We probably got time for one more, these guys gotta get back to caucuses.
Did you use the House use any legislative funds to pay for the Pat Garofalo mugs?
No, we did not. Thank you, thank you.
We will actually go out to